Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan, Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, or iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Alright, so today, might be a little bit of a short, I'm probably on the shorter end of podcasts. I'm not really sure. We'll see if I ramble. I do tend to do that a lot, so we'll see where my rambling gets us. You won't believe it. I'm going to open up talking about the Cowboys. And see, the only reason is because once I think I'm ready to let go of the fact that a lot of analysts keep saying the Cowboys are going to be solid this year, I see another one come up say, oh, this is going to be the best they've been in a quarter century. No, it's not. No, it's not. In 2016, that was the best team they had in the last 25 years. You know, the last time they won a Super Bowl. Actually, 27 years ago, the last time they won a Super Bowl. I don't see how, first of all, I don't see how the defense is viewed as potentially the best in the league. I don't see where that came from. Alright, I don't see how other people don't understand that their O-line is taking a significant drop since that 2016 season when they were the best in the league. And I will talk about the positives of this team. Alright. Tony, I think, addition by subtraction and getting rid of Ezekiel Elliott. I like Tony Pollard. I think that is a good move. They're running back. Dak Prescott, I think he's the top 12 quarterback in the league. CeeDee Lamb, great wide receiver. Right? But they've had that they've had Prescott and CeeDee Lamb for a few years now. They've amounted to nothing. Alright, maybe they'll be a little bit better now that Tony Pollard's the running back, but they also lost their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. Now Mike McCarthy's calling the plays. We don't know how that's going to work. No one can really tell. And Dak could be in a rough contract position if this happens. You know, I don't see why we could be seeing if they have a lack of success in the next two seasons, it could be the beginning of the end for Dak in Dallas. All right, because why would they extend him if he's bringing them nowhere? And unfortunately, this is kind of the formula for their last few seasons. You know, like, their quarterbacks, honestly, haven't been bad, but they haven't really been elite either. Prescott's not a bad quarterback, but he's not elite either. You know, he's good. He's not great. So, I think they're going to say, you know, he's in his 30s, he hasn't done anything for us, and if we get rid of him, we have a lot of cap room. I think it's possible they say, we'll let him walk in free agency, open up a lot of cap space. And if they're smart, they'll rebuild that O-line. Speaking of O-line, the other constant over the past few weeks that I've talked about is the Jets. Alright? Now, like I said, more positives than negatives with the Jets. I'm a lot higher on the Jets than I am on the Cowboys. They have an elite quarterback. They have an even better run game than Dallas does with Breece Hall when he comes back and Dalvin Cook. Where they are the same, they both have, I feel like, only one receiver to be excited about. You know, Jets have Garrett Wilson, who's really good. I think he's going to take it to the next level with Aaron Rodgers instead of Zach Wilson now. And But other than that, what other receivers are there? Luckily, since Rodgers is better than Dak by a lot, Rodgers hasn't really needed more than one receiver to succeed in the past. And he's adjusted a lot. He had Greg Jennings for a bit. Then it was Jordy Nelson. Then it was Devontae Adams for a while, actually. So he's adjusted to a lot of different receivers over the past few years. Last year, even Christian Watson last year, he had a great connection with him. I think him and Garrett Wilson can have a very solid connection. I think that's good stuff. Their run game and their defense is fantastic. Just I worry about that O-line, and that receiving corps seems to be leaving a lot to be desired. I think it'll be a good year for them, but I don't see them contending for a Super Bowl. Alright. So let's actually shift to some baseball, which I never talk about. Ronald Acuna was rushed by fans during the game. I think if I were working security there, you can't have two separate guys in different waves come and harass the player. Now, I'm not saying I'd be a good security guy, but I feel like if you're working there, you have to feel bad about what happened last night, because that at the end of the day, that is a security problem. That's not on anyone else but you in that case. You can't have two. I mean, it's better if there's even one guy coming onto the field and rushing a player. But no, you had two separate guys at different times jump on the field and harass a player. So, that's just a big security problem there. And on the actual game side of things, Acuna is a very... actually, he was the NL MVP candidate until Mookie Betts is kind of taken over right now. But yeah, obviously he's like a top 5 player. I would argue top 3 in the game. I think Acuna, Ohtani, and Judge would be my top 3. Obviously, you could fit some other people in there. Betts, Freddie Freeman's very solid. But yeah, that's a rough scene there last night. Alright, now we're going to go back to football for a bit. Anthony Richardson was talking about some expectations for the season. And one thing he said was, everybody wants him to come here and come to Indianapolis and win a Super Bowl his first year. Now, I mean, he's not going to do that. The Colts aren't even going to win the AFC. They're not going to win their division. There's no way they're contending for a Super Bowl this year. They're not. I don't even think they're making the playoffs. And I think there's more pressure, in my opinion, on the Colts than there is on Anthony Richardson. Because if Richardson doesn't work out, obviously that's rough for him, but he can be redeemed. Because people can just turn around and say, well, the Colts have been through 8 quarterbacks in 5 years. Maybe it wasn't Anthony Richardson's talent. Maybe it was they just don't handle quarterbacks that well. So I think if Richardson doesn't work out, he can still be viewed as potentially being redeemed. But the Colts organization is going to be looking like, well, since Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning, your quarterbacks have been incredibly bad. Like, there has not been a single guy that the Colts have had that they were able to commit to Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz had okay seasons, good enough. They made the playoffs with Phillip Rivers, but he wasn't the guy that was going to be there for the long haul. He was kind of just a guy they threw in there to maybe boost the morale so that the team can go into the next season and say, hey, we made the playoffs last year. Let's keep going, But that didn't work. I don't know why they moved off Carson Wentz. I know he's not the best quarterback ever. Don't get me wrong, but he had a solid season. When he was with the Colts, he had a solid season. So I don't know why they moved off him, but that's none of my business. And but I think Richardson will. I think, like I said, I don't think his stat line is going to be very impressive. I can see him being a lot like Josh Allen was his first year. And even some Lamar Jackson there. I mean, he doesn't remind me of Lamar that much, but as far as stat lines go, I can see him being similar, like low completion percentage. But we see his talent. He's clearly talented, a big arm. A strong guy. But Richards, he will have some bad moments in the games. He's a rookie. It's kind of natural. It's not normal where you get a Patrick Mahomes kind of guy where he comes in and has almost a flawless season. And as a matter of fact, Mahomes actually sat for a whole year behind Alex Smith. He didn't have to jump right in like Anthony Richardson has to. So, all right, let's move on to the Niners with Nick Bosa and his holdout currently. It seems like they seem pretty optimistic and pretty certain that his holdout will end very soon before the season starts. And that he'll be there week 1. But, Bosa coming back will be good. It will. Obviously, he's a top 3 defensive end in the league. I think he's the second best behind Aaron Donald. But it's like you can't be game ready without getting reps with the team during camp, and he's missed all of training camp. It's hard to come back after missing all the training camp. And I mean, I think for any player, it's hard to miss an entire training camp and come back and be the same player you were before. Obviously, I'm sure he's been working on his own, but it's like the best way to get better is working with the team. Luckily, at his position, you don't have to be there that much. It's not like when you're a quarterback or receiver where you have to work with the offense. Or, if you're a receiver, you got to work with the quarterback. As a defensive end, you just got to know, how to work around the other team, the opposing team's O-line. And Bosa, obviously, very experienced with that. But, yeah, him coming back, it will do more good than bad. All right, so Mike Lombardi spoke on a podcast, and he said he isn't fully confident that Russell Wilson will finish year 2 as a starter in Denver. Now, this is interesting to me, because Russell Wilson seems to be in a much better position than he was a year ago. And I don't think Sean Payton's going to do that much to fix Wilson, because his job is to fix the Broncos as a whole, not just Russell Wilson. That's what Sean Payton was hired to do. He was hired to fix the entire Broncos team that completely screwed up last year. They had talent, they had a lot of talent, and they blew it. And the Broncos actually, in the last 6 years, have the second lowest winning percentage, only behind the Jets. Just to shed some light on how bad it has been post-Peyton Manning era. And just like the Colts, actually, the Broncos have not gotten the quarterback right since Peyton Manning. In the Colts case, they haven't gotten it right since Andrew Luck. And I don't like to think Russell Wilson is washed, but it's hard to ignore the fact. He had 9 straight winning seasons, Russell Wilson, with Seattle. His last year in Seattle, he went below 500. And then last year, went below 500. With a talented roster, that Broncos roster last year did not lack talent. And also, it's hard to ignore that he's been hurt at some point in the season the last 2 years as well. So the last 2 years have been a lot different for Russell Wilson than his prime years, the first 9 years of his career. And you can't help but think, Pete Carroll, the Seahawks were, because when Russell Wilson requested a trade, the first offseason, the Seahawks did not want to move off him. The year after, they decided to make the trade. Why did they do that? I hate to say it, but I think it has to do with the fact that they saw regression in Russell Wilson as a player. They saw that he was not the same franchise quarterback he always has been. That's my theory about it. I think that's why they shipped him off the year after he requested the trade. That is also kind of what I fear about Aaron Rodgers. He's kind of on a similar path, because last year was his worst year in a while, statistically. Statistically, last year, Rodgers had his weakest year, I think, since his first year as a starter. And the Packers held out on trading him for like 3 years. Why did they choose to trade him this year? Maybe they saw a regression. I'm just saying it's a possibility with both Rodgers and Wilson. But then again, this is just it is what it is. It's a theory. It's not anything I'm certain of. So I'm not changing my opinion on the Broncos and Jets. I think the Broncos will be better than next year, but still third in their division, missing the playoffs. I think the Jets will get a wild card spot, likely be a first-round exit. They have the potential to win a playoff game and make it to the second round. They have the potential to win 11 games, but yeah, it's just hard to ignore a lot of these warning signs about the Broncos and Russell Wilson. Broncos haven't gotten the quarterback right in years. Russell Wilson, the last 2 years, has been hurt and looked much weaker than he did in years past. The Broncos have the, like I said, second lowest winning percentage, only behind the Jets the past 6 years. So, hard to ignore the lack of success the Broncos have had the past few years. Alright, here's another team that's going downhill. The Cardinals released Colt McCoy, which you might ask, why does that matter? Well, because, as most of you guys know, Kyler Murray is on the PUP list. So Colt McCoy being released is kind of weird, because he's a pretty good backup when you think about it. Obviously, he's not going to lead you to a Super Bowl or anything like that. I don't think he even leads you to the playoffs, but Colt McCoy, if you're going to not have Kyler Murray for a while, you might as well play Colt McCoy So why are you releasing him and not naming a Week 1 starter? I'm thinking they're tanking. That's my guess. But I don't see why you... I don't know. I just don't think we've really seen tanking in the NFL. Most teams, when they're playing poorly, they usually start winning at the end of the year when they simply don't care as much. I think it's very possible the Cardinals are going to be in for the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Which is also weird because Kyler Murray is still young and not exactly what I would call a bad quarterback. So, I don't know. We'll see if they have a plan. I think, honestly, it is possible that they move Kyler Murray and just try to clean house with how catastrophic the Cliff Kingsbury era has been. So I do think it's possible that they clean house at the end of the year, but we'll see how it all shakes out. Alright, so the Colts are apparently... I should have talked about this when the news came out, but the Colts are keeping Jonathan Taylor because they did not find a trade, and they're keeping him on the PUP list, and he'll miss at least 4 games. I'm kind of... I mean, I don't think the asking price was too steep for Jonathan Taylor. You know, and he can still be moved, actually, until the trade deadline. But it would have no impact on the 4-game absence. The minimum required 4-game absence. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't work a trade out. I really thought he was going to get traded before the season started to at least, like, the Dolphins or something. But it's kind of crazy because there was news earlier that they were actively working on the trade and that, like that, it was in the works, and now I'm seeing that they didn't. They're going to keep him on. Not only are they going to keep him, but they're keeping him on the injured list. You know, and I did not think the injury was actually serious. I thought he was just using that as leverage. You know, to like, as a reason to sit the season in case they didn't trade him, which they didn't, so we'll see what he does. I'm assuming he'll still play when he's back, but, you know, I just think it's stupid to not play the season. I said the same thing about Josh Jacobs. Just play the season. Who cares if you don't like the team you're on? I mean, you'll be a free agent sooner or later in your career. Just leave him in when it's actually your choice. A trade is not your choice. It's up to the GM, everyone else. All right. So the Bills placed Von Miller on the PUP list, and as you know, he'll miss 4 games. Now, you might say not Jonathan Taylor. Von Miller is up there in age, and it might not matter that much, but their pass rush was not the same without him last year when he got injured. And I don't know, even if he comes back, I don't think he'll be the same, because he's 34, he's on his 2nd ACL tear. It's hard to come back from 1 ACL tear, let alone 2. Especially when you're in your 30s. And, you know, the Bills, I'm still high on them, but it's like, there is some things that I'm a little skeptical of. Last year, their offense looked a lot shakier without Brian Daboll. Alright? I'm not sure if this year's going to be any different. And then you have... I mean, over the offseason, I did mention the drama, which I do think offseason drama does contribute to a team's downfall, but it seems that's all water under the bridge. But I mean, losing Von Miller is actually a decent hit, but I'm going to stick with the prediction on them. I would say they're the weakest out of the three heavy AFC favorites, the Bengals, Chiefs, and Bills. I would say the Chiefs, not the Chiefs, the Bills are the weakest of those three, but they are stronger than the rest of the AFC, in my opinion. They're stronger than the Jags, the Ravens, Jets, Dolphins, all those teams. All right. So Willie Snead actually compared Brock Purdy to Drew Brees, and whenever I don't know what it is, but whenever I see any player, even if they played with Drew Brees, which Willie Snead did, whenever I see a player compared to a legend of that sport, whether it's an NBA prospect being compared to Michael Jordan or LeBron, or an NFL player being compared to like Tom Brady or Drew Brees or Peyton Manning, it kind of annoys me because they're all legends. They're like, and I'm not saying there can't be another version of them, but it's like, that's tough to do, and it's, I don't know, I just think we shouldn't, at least don't compare people to Jordan, LeBron, or Brady, in my opinion. Because they are some of the greatest outliers in sports. Especially Tom Brady. He has more rings than any NFL franchise. He has more playoff wins than any NFL franchise. He's one of a kind. You can't compare anyone to Tom Brady. Alright. But that being said, I do think Brock Purdy deserves more credit than he gets. Because I think a lot of people are just simply saying, oh, he didn't play very great teams at the end of the year. He's coming off a big injury, and that injury is, it could be serious. But I am rooting for him. I think he'll be solid, and I'm not saying he'll be a top 5 quarterback in the league, even top 10. But the point I'm trying to get across to people is Jimmy Garoppolo made the Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan and that system by throwing 27 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. He was not efficient. He wasn't consistent. He wasn't an elite quarterback that year. Brock Purdy, in my opinion, does not have to be an elite quarterback. All right. Last year, Brock Purdy threw 13 touchdowns and 4 picks in 9 games, along with a 107 quarterback rating. Oh, if he did that. Now, this isn't entirely accurate because people have off games and all that. But that equates to about 25 touchdowns and 8 picks. So 5 less picks than Garoppolo and, 2 less touchdowns. And a better quarterback rating. And they have Christian McCaffrey, which they didn't have last time. They had Raheem Mostert. So I think they've made big improvements, even with Brock Purdy. And I do think they could be contending for a Super Bowl this year. I think they are better than the Eagles, in my opinion, for this year. The Eagles did lose their coordinators, which will take a hit. I'm not saying they're going to completely die, but I don't know if they'll be as electric as last year. All right. The final closing topic is actually going to be on the NBA. So here's a big surprise. The Lakers and Knicks are interested in somebody. And that somebody is Giannis. In the case he leaves the Bucks, the Lakers and Knicks are interested. I'm not the only one who isn't surprised at all, right? I mean, everyone is interested in Giannis, but I do think it's ironic that every time a big name comes up, it's like, oh, the Lakers and Knicks are interested. Yeah, they always are. Difference is the Lakers have a history of actually getting big names, and the Knicks do not. Outside of Carmelo Anthony, have a history of that. And the Lakers, they only have LeBron for another 2 years, I would guess. I think he has 2 years on his contract, I believe. They just signed AD to a big contract. But the Lakers and Knicks, they're always interested in players, Then, why shouldn't they be? They have enough money for it, so they have the cap space, and they are big markets. If the player is interested in playing for them, then I think we can have at it. Alright, so, 30-minute podcast. That was actually pretty solid. So that's going to be it for today. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Was Done. I believe the next 3 days might be tough for me to get a podcast in, but I'll do my best, because I'm working from tomorrow to Saturday, all those days. I'm working, so I'll see if I can get it in. I'll definitely do my best. This is Dylan Miller, Daily Was Done. Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Was Done. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.